You're listening to WromComms, the podcast sharing the joy of sim racing and motorsports, made by the RomRom team. Welcome! Thanks for stopping by. I'm Cody, and I'll be the host today. On this month's episode of WromComms, we have Mudrunner VR, and Motorsport Games may have some tricks up their sleeve to stay alive for a little while longer. I am joined today by Serta.
Hi, and we also have Pista Motorsport, the Argentinian sim, has released some news you may have heard in our news on Sunday, and the plans of what they want to do with the sim, and we're going to compare those to the plans of Rennsport. And also Traxion has been sold to Gridfinder. What may be the plan here? And if you are searching for Eike, we're searching for Eike too. I think he went to sleep because he's going to be all the 6 hours of the drive for Dean that it's going to be in your past, in your Saturday, while for us it's in our future, in our Saturday. We're recording this on Saturday. So he may have overslept or something.
Yeah, I can't relate. I've never. I would never do that. That's never happened. I would never miss a podcast because I overslept.
What was it? A year ago, wasn't it? A year ago that you were at the festivities of Cinco de Mayo and therefore overslept, something like that, and you were not at the podcast. I
mean, I don't drink, so if that's what you're insinuating, I don't think so.
No, but you can stay. You can stay for. You can make a night long without having to drink.
Yeah, that's true. But nonetheless, Eike is not here. I am here, and. We miss Eike, but we will look forward to seeing him later
in a
today.
Couple of hours in our time, so yeah.
Yes, driving in the Drive for Dean. Since this will be coming out, we were recording this just before the Drive for Dean, but this will be coming out after the Drive for Dean race. I guess let's talk in the past tense a little bit, just at the top of the show here, about what the Drive for Dean race was. Obviously, we can't give you like results or anything because it hasn't happened yet as of the time of recording, but the Drive for Dean race, if you've been under a rock in the RomRom world, is a charity fundraiser race that we are putting on for a good friend of the show, Dean Hyde, who unfortunately has terminal cancer. And so we are putting on a race in his honor, or we put on a race in his honor, and it is serving as a charity fundraiser. So
for the Macmillan Cancer Support.
Yes, for the Macmillan Cancer Support, which does a lot of really great work around, fighting cancer. And I don't need to, rehash what cancer awareness is and where that, where all the good things that money goes to. And of course, we will have talked about it a lot in the stream. But sort of will we at the time of recording or at the time of release, will we still be taking donations, or can
Absolutely.
We link to where they can donate?
Absolutely. We're gonna leave the door open for donations, and yes, we're gonna link it anywhere that we can. So donate. We had at the start set up a limit of 100 British pound for donations. That exploded, luckily, and then together with Dean, we moved it to 1,000 British pound. And that luckily is already, and we haven't started the race, is already exploded. So we've moved it to 2,000, and let's see if that is going to be exploding also. We love moving the goalposts when it comes to donations.
Yes, absolutely. So, wonderful housekeeping. If you didn't watch the race, the VOD is up. So go on ahead and check that out. Hasn't happened yet as the time of recording. I'm going to say that again, but I know it's going to be a very good race, very big race. So
we're going to have different commentators.
Yes.
Eike is going to be all the 6 hours. So if he's oversleeping because he's gathering energy to keep up the 6 hours, he's more than forgiven.
Okay, so let's dive into our first topic. In the world of RomRom, we cover a lot of sim racing news, we cover a lot of motorsport, and we also cover some racing adjacent stuff. And one of the sim racing adjacent things that caught our eye this month is Mudrunner in VR. Exclusively on the Meta Quest. So, we have a new title from
the Mudrunner universe, let's call it that.
The Mudrunner universe.
Or the
Saber,
whatever runner. But yeah, the company is Saber, but the Mudrunner and it's 3 games, or even 4 if you count Expeditions. So it was Mudrunner, then another one, then SnowRunner, then Expeditions, and SnowRunner was the first that was financed and developed by Saber after they had some shenanigans going with the studio that started the whole thing, and it seems that the owners of the rights to Mudrunner moved to Saber, and now the whole Mudrunner universe, Mudrunnerverse, Mudverse, whatever is within Saber.
So that cluster is releasing a new, in air quotes, dedicated VR experience. So if I had said, hey, Mudrunner gets VR, you would think the application that I own on my Windows machine called Mudrunner is getting VR support. Yay, awesome. This is not that. But it is a somewhat standalone. It's definitely standalone in that it is a, unique application that is separate from the Mudrunner game itself. But it's a unique application that will be, I think, rehashing a lot of Mudrunner 1 content in a packaged VR experience for the Meta Quest platform. So I say Meta Quest platform, it's supported on the Meta Quest 2, the Meta Quest 3, and the Meta Quest Pro. So I guess if you have an original Quest 1, it won't be on that. But I'm not super familiar with the Meta Quest environment because I have a Windows machine and VR for that. So as someone with a Windows machine and VR for that, this is not coming out for me. This is for those with a Meta Quest headset. But let's talk a little bit about what we do know. There's a lot we don't know. We don't know the release date. We don't know the price, that sort of thing. But we do know that it will be a first-person game, so no third-person view on the driving.
Would not make much sense on VR.
Right. Yeah. But I wonder if you drive Mudrunner in third-person view, and you're used to that. That might be a different experience. If you drive in first person, I'm sure it will be pretty similar. But
I've tried driving SnowRunner in first person, and I got I could not. also because I'm moving the mouse around to see if I'm gonna hit something or whatever, because SnowRun is one of those games that can be exasperating because you lose food, so to speak, tire, and your whole car and its content drops a cliff. So I move my mouse around a lot. Driving on first person on that one would be scary.
Yeah. So they have 8 vehicles, which I think are, well, I know that most of these are in the existing Mudrunner game. We don't know all 8 vehicles on the Mudrunner uh, wiki. They have already identified 4 of them, but we have 4 that are yet to be revealed in the trailer. We will have a story mode, so there will be a campaign. They call it a story mode, so I don't know how story-rich Mudrunner will end up being. And then they have a number of environments, so it won't just be set in one environment. There will be multiple environments to explore. Now, one of the coolest things with this being a VR experience is that you'll have the ability to get out of your vehicle, walk around the environment, and interact with your vehicle, like hooking up a tow hitch with the with the VR controller. Yeah, the name escaped me for a second there. And English is my first language. Hey, but anyways, so this presents some interesting thoughts. Being a MetaQuest exclusive is a choice, and I'm curious. My discussion topic for Serta, for you, is this a good move? Should we see more of this from the industry at large? Should we see more independent experiences from the sim racing and sim industry as a whole in VR?
So I'm a big fan of VR. I drive. I prefer to drive on VR. Any sim. Automobilista 2 has the best VR, I would say. Then followed by Assetto Corsa up to a point, and R Factor 2. But I love to drive in VR. It's made me faster because of the depth perception. I can drive nearer to the other cars. I can drive nearer to the apex. I can drive more fluidly because I see where everything is, and I have the depth perception to be sure that I'm not hitting anything. But I'm also a VR fan in other things, like Elite Dangerous is one of my favorites, because you see how big everything is and you can move a little bit around your spaceship. Or for those who like first-person shooters, Payday 2 has VR support, and I've played with that a lot. So I'm a big fan of VR. Therefore, it can be very interesting to have the VR experience on Mudrunner, especially if you are, as we hope and expect, able to get out of the truck and look around and see where you are, then come back to the truck, move it along, hopefully gaining some space, and then you may have to go out again and so on. We don't know how the mechanics are gonna be, how they're gonna set it up. So VR is great. VR is a lot of fun if you can stomach VR, and never better said, because there's people who get sick when using VR. I'm luckily not one of those. I can use VR in anything, in flight simulations and whatever, and in the middle of combat I don't get sick, so I'm lucky. Therefore, it can be a very interesting proposition. you were saying you were explaining that they are not using the Mudrunner graphics and just putting VR on it, which is good because the Mudrunner graphics are dated, and the whole graphic engine is dated. It would look horrible on VR. So I suppose they at least will do all the graphic engine stuff will do completely anew. So it's gonna be interesting to see that if they get the graphics to the level of graphic quality that SnowRunner and Expeditions have, which is a high level, and that on VR, it's gonna be tons of fun. Now, as you were saying, we don't know exactly if it's gonna be Mudrunner transported to the Quest, or if it's gonna be a game within the Mudrunnerverse, whatever verse, that is gonna tell a different story within the mechanics of Mudrunner. We'll have to wait and see, but at least I expect it's gonna be fun.
Regarding graphics, and I encourage listeners and viewers to at some point go open a new tab, check out Saber Interactive's YouTube channel, where they have the Mudrunner VR announcement trailer. Graphics wise, it does, I must admit, looks a bit like a PS3 game. Xbox 360 era. I think it is a bit of a texture and lighting downgrade from what I've seen of Mudrunner itself, but it doesn't look much worse than the original Mudrunner. But of course, optimizing it for the meta quest, if it runs well, that's arguably more important than if it looks good. But again, this is an announcement trailer, and perhaps things could improve. Maybe. Not sure. But
normally you put the best graphics you can on your trailer, so
yeah, you would think. But anyways, so that is Mudrunner VR. Personally, my thoughts on it are, I don't think it's for me. First off, because I don't have a meta quest and I don't plan to. But let's say it could run on my machine and it weren't a spin-off exclusive. A spin-off, spin tires. Hey. But I don't think it would be for me regardless, because if I want to play Mudrunner, I think I would rather have the full Mudrunner. This feels to me a bit like Mudrunner Lite, and I think they're trying to make it a different but also cool for different reasons experience. But personally, if it's a pared back version of Mudrunner with less to do overall, and again, it's not out yet, we've just got the announcement, but if it ends up to where there's much less to do overall than Mudrunner, I think I'd probably rather my time still play Mudrunner. Now, my judgment on that might be a little bit colored, so I'll give a little bit of background with VR. I actually bought my VR headset for sim racing, and I had also done some flight sim things here and there. I've got my flight stick here on my desk, actually. But I ended up not using my VR headset for sim racing hardly at all, because I was much slower than on my triple screen. And I think it came down to my head was not always in the same place, and so my braking zones and distances weren't as consistent as if it was just on a monitor that stayed in one spot, as opposed to a monitor that moved with my head. And then additionally, I tended, if I started sliding the car, to look where the car was sliding to, and then I would lose sight of
you end up going where you're looking, so that
exactly
that should not be what you do.
Exactly. So I ended up not using it much for sim racing. I ended up using it much more for flying around. And so I have to wonder, actually, with an experience like this, that's not, go as fast as possible always, if I would enjoy this in VR more. Because I really enjoy flying over, Stalingrad in 1942 with a plane with a gun on it. And so I wonder if Mudrunner would be closer to that experience than to competitive sim racing in VR for me. So I would be interested in trying it, but I wouldn't buy a Meta Quest for it. So
I wouldn't buy a Meta Quest for anything, because Meta is gulping anything that you do on the Meta Quest and putting it into their database, including eye movement. So all
yes,
goes
yeah.
into the enormous Meta, we suck your marrow from your bones database.
So here's another question, and sort of, I think you know more about the uh, financial situation of how this studio has performed recently, but I have to wonder if the how do I phrase this? If the choice to make this a MetaQuest exclusive was maybe something where they're being paid for it to be an exclusive. I have to wonder about that.
Well, normally, if you want to have something exclusively, you pay for it. That's the way that the cookie crumbles. I don't know how Meta does it. I know that Sony co-finances or completely finances games that come out exclusively for the PlayStation, and therefore they drop a bunch of money, some X, a percentage, or the full 100% of what the development is going to cost, so that you develop something for them exclusively. I suppose what they did here was some kind of initial percentage or something like that, so that they what Meta did was an initial percentage so that they could start getting the ball rolling. Saber has not been very lucky with, let's call it lucky, with their games. Dakar Desert Rally didn't sell well, was not a good game, was not what people expected. Not supporting wheels from the start was a very bad idea, because it already gave them a low number of players, and the numbers have only been dwindling since it came out. Expeditions, it did not deliver what it promised, or I don't know exactly. Truth to be told, I have Expeditions. I tested Expeditions. We released a review here, and I'm quite underwhelmed by Expeditions, contrary to what was with SnowRunner. So Expeditions has not sold well. Dakar Desert Rally has not sold well. So in that universe, they are not performing well. While Dakar Desert Rally was made by a different group than those doing SnowRunner and I think Expeditions, all in all, it's two games that have not been selling well. I'm pretty sure that to at least recoup what they paid for the idea and the license of the Mudrunner universe, they really took that opportunity for at least for starting the development, and hope that it's gonna be selling on the Meta Quest whatever good enough to at last have something that is going well, because they haven't had that since SnowRunner. SnowRunner is going to release a fourth year pass. It was planned for 1 year. Then they said, oh, okay, it's running so well, it's a second year pass. Now they're already on the 4th year pass. So the other 3 passes must have sold well enough for them to continue with the SnowRunner universe. So SnowRunner is doing great, seems to be selling fantastically compared to the others. And also, let's not forget, I think Saber was part of the studios that were sold to, what's the group called? Ingrammer, whatever. There was a big cut out, and Saber was part of that. So they have to deliver something that sells. They have to deliver something that at least brings them a black zero, brings them some money to keep Saber running, or they're gonna get closed. At the moment, the way these companies are going, they get closed at the first thing that doesn't sell. The studio that did what was the game where you learned how to build a rocket and send it into space?
Kerbal Space Program.
Exactly. Kerbal Space Program was a fantastic hit, the first one. The second is been a bust of major proportions.
Failure to launch.
And this week we saw the news that the studio is going to get closed. So you see how fast companies owning other companies react when you deliver, when you don't deliver. So that Saber is still up and running. Mudrunner VR may be the last opportunity for them to survive.
Yeah, interesting choice to do an exclusive, but my guess, I don't know, but my guess is that they're hedging that the money that they're getting from Meta to make this exclusive will offset the money that they might not have gotten on a full release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Globally. Okay.
Speaking about surviving
topic.
companies.
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. Speaking of surviving companies, do we want to talk about the Motorsport Games thing? Maybe living
go
another
ahead.
day. Okay. So, Motorsport Games has a couple of tricks up their sleeve. So the first one is Motorsport Games and Toka, who owns BTCC. BTC. Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't put a third C in there.
British Touring Car Championship.
Yes. They have reached a deal with regards to the BTCC license. So they had, in 2020, acquired the official license to produce a standalone BTCC standalone racing game. That did not happen. It was supposed to come out in 2022. It is now, at the time of recording, 2024, and no BTCC game from Motorsport Games in sight at all. What we did end up with was Studio 397 announcing that we would get British Touring Car cars for R Factor 2. And we did, as add-ons, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, but every car costs you $5 and every track costs you and everything and whatever, and you end up paying more than if they would have ever given out a BTCC game, and you still don't have all the tracks of the BTCC in there.
Yes. Yeah. So there's that. So it was too little, too late, really. But anyway, so in 2022, the then CEO, Dmitry Kozko, who's not there anymore, announced that the BTCC game would come out in 2024, which has not happened, and he's gone.
And is not going to happen because the BTCC took away their license seemingly legally based on the contract.
Yes, yeah. Which, yeah, Motorsport Games not upholding their end of the deal. Name a more perfect duo. But there is hope yonder in the distance of Motorsport Games having the license to BTCC again to maybe get another shot. The Mall Ultimate did a little bit better, so there's hope.
Hope. I see it differently.
Mm-hmm.
The license that Motorsport Games now has with BTCC is a non-exclusive license, limited to, what was it, 2025? Something like
2026.
2026. Okay, so yes. They have a non-exclusive license. That means that BTCC can offer that license to anybody else. Reza, are you listening? And these anybody else can then develop a standalone BTCC racing game, racing sim, or put it out as a complete BTCC DLC or whatever within their sim. That means, and the license is going to end up for Motorsport Games in 2026. I think this is more the situation where BTCC said, we're rescinding the license as per the contract. Motorsport Games said, nope, we're not accepting that. BTCC said, then we go to court. Motorsport Games say, then we go to court. BTCC said, oh my God, this is going to cost us more money than we're ever going to see from the license. Let's talk about it. And at the end, they decided, okay, you get a non-exclusive license until 2026, and then you shut up, and we can move on from you guys, at least based on the tone of the press release when BTCC rescinded the contract and rescinded the license. I don't think there's a lot of goodwill left within Toka towards Motorsport Games, and I personally see it as a way for BTCC to cut their losses, not have to go to court, say, okay, whatever, you have a license and we can in any way sell the license, and when we sell that license we can say from 2026 on it's going to be an exclusive license, do what you want with it.
Yep. So my hope with this is that we do end up seeing a BTCC game. My expectation with this is that this will inevitably result in some more BTCC content for R Factor 2, and then 2026 will roll around and they will miss their deadline on making a new game and the license will expire. But this does provide an avenue for Motorsport Games to stay alive for a little bit longer.
But they would have to. I don't think that the DLCs they produced on its time with the cars and so on are still selling well. I'm pretty sure they're not selling as well as the cash flow Studio 397 and Motorsport Games need. And they would have to do new DLCs, which I don't know if Studio 397 has the amount of developers needed to do a DLC. I mean, at the end of the day, sure, if you just use the graphic designers and just put it out like that, maybe, because the developers are working on Le Mans Ultimate and the designers are working on the cars. We'll have to see.
So my guess as to their roadmap, and this is why I say this is maybe a little bit of hope, is that now that they have the license to a title, to a championship, again, they will do. And again, we're under new MSG leadership.
True.
This does not mean that they're not a sinking ship, but maybe there's a chance that they can be righted now that Cosco is out. Stephen Hood, I think, is the new CEO. So if Hood can work with very little money and make a DLC that wows everybody and gives them enough capital, or at least enough promise so that they can secure a round of funding, they can perhaps have enough money to start on a BTCC game or resume whatever progress they had. That's the other thing, is my guess is that there was some development in that 2020 to 2022 window on a BTCC game that was way behind schedule and never got made, or never got finished. So it could be that they have this sitting and waiting, and they just need the capital to continue work on it. Speaking of capital, Motorsport Games has announced the sale of Traxion.gg. And sort of, I'll let you take that one away, because you are the one who put out an offer, a standing offer to purchase.
Well, I didn't get as far as putting out an offer. I just said, hey, if you're into, I sent. I think it wasn't even an email; it was just in LinkedIn to the new CEO, and I said, "Hey, if you're interested in selling Traxion, I may be interested in buying." But never heard anything back. And now I read that they've sold it for $200,000 US dollar in cash. No, $200,000 in cash and $50,000 in marketing for Motorsport Games. Like 50,000 worth of, I don't know, advertisement or videos or whatever. The Motorsport Games is going to be allowed to use the YouTube channel of Traxion for the 24 hours of Le Mans, the virtual Le Mans, and whatever else they want to use it. So anything within that realm worth $50,000 US dollars is what they are going to get, and they get $200,000 in cash. They could have gotten that from us, but okay. I would have been able to scrounge the money. In any case, it's been sold to Gridfinder Limited. Gridfinder, as some of you may remember, was acquired by some private automotive club in the States a couple of months ago. In Houston, exactly.
In Texas. Hey.
A couple of months ago. So they want to do something with all that media, but we don't know what. Truth to be told, I fail to see how Traxion would fit the strategic overall thinking within a Gridfinder, but it may just be a failure from my side to understand what the new Gridfinder with that, I don't remember the name, that private motorsport a club is doing. So maybe I just do not have enough information. Maybe they just want the names of the people that we're part of Traxion, that we're watching Traxion or whatever. They want the eyeballs. As I said, at the moment, I can imagine what they would want to do with that, but it's just a wild imagination. I don't know why they bought it and why it's part of Gridfinder Limited now.
Yeah, so it was Rafa Racing Club that ended up buying Gridfinder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was in a 7-figure deal. It was an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
over $1 million for Grid Finder, which is a uh, online matchmaking, find a community to race with service
Mm-hmm.
for sim racing. And then Traxion is a sim racing news uh, organization, not terribly dissimilar from us. Uh, and so,
100% online, no
yeah,
print or anything.
yes,
And let's not forget, when Motorsport Games closed Traxion, they said everybody on the street that was working for Traxion. So what Gridfinder have bought is, to all intents and purposes, a whole. They have bought the name, they have bought the channel, they have bought the website, and whatever information came with that. Members, patrons, people who were members on the website, I don't know, but that's all they bought because everybody else has moved on. I do know from at least 3 people that were working at Traxion who now are doing other stuff.
Yeah, so effectively what they have purchased is the website, which traffic has dropped off considerably, I'm sure, because they haven't posted a new article in, let's see, since
October?
November.
Okay.
Yeah. They have purchased the website. They have purchased a YouTube channel with, I think, 85,000 subscribers. Yeah, 85,000 subscribers. They've purchased a Twitter account, the Instagram, the Facebook, and the TikTok, with none of the people to run it. So that is what their $250,000 has earned them. And so it's going to be one of those things where it's like, I went into this and I was thinking, man, that's a low amount. We could have bought that, right? And then I was thinking like, but what did they get? Like, was that even 250,000 well spent? And I've got to wonder. Gridfinder doesn't have a huge social media presence. Rafa Racing Club has not much of a social media presence.
A website that has some nice computer graphics.
Right, yeah, that's about it. And even then, it doesn't have much substance to it.
Yeah.
But my guess, given that, is that we will see the Traxion.gg branding maybe replaced, and those, like the youtube.com/Traxion.gg will change over branding, and they will take that existing audience and try to convert them into Gridfinder, Rafa Racing fans, what have you. That's the only way that this makes sense to me. Because otherwise,
on the other hand, they're not gonna make money with that. Traxion was not making money, and no, it was never meant to make money. Traxion, the way that Traxion was set up, was to be kind of journalistic medium, and the way for Motorsport Games in due time to show their content and show the races within their content and whatever. Let's not forget, Motorsport Games still is owned by the Motorsport Network, which do show races in their own website, and even have videos of older races and so on. So they have the rights for a lot of races in a lot of series, at least the secondary rights, the second use rights for those. So that I understood. Like, you have people who are the Motorsport Network who produce content around motorsport, and then they go Motorsport Games so they can produce content around sim racing, like virtual motorsport, e-motorsport, whatever you want to call it. That made more sense. There was an overlap there. With Gridfinder, Rafa Racing Club, and so on, there is almost no overlap, but it may very well be what you are saying. Like in the end, what was Traxion is going to become Grid Finder, similar to what was Race Department is now Overtake. And Traxion is going to become the media side of Grid Finder Rafa Racing Club. I still don't very much understand why Rafa Racing Club bought Grid Finder, and I'll never understand why they paid 7 figures for that, but more power to Grid Finder. In any case, yeah, it may very well be that you have a motorsport fan that has a motorsport club, a private motorsport club, buying a way of getting people that are interested in motorsport and at some point maybe even in sim sport, so they can all find themselves together virtually or really in Houston, and then buying a media arm to be able to put the voice out there. Now, it's a bet of if the people that are listening to Traxion, that are subscribers or whatever, are gonna keep becoming subscribers if they get bombarded with advertisement for Rafa Motorsport Club or whatever they are called. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's Grid Finder buying it, but we all know that Grid Finder just got bought, and so it's going to be Rafa, the dude who a podcast or two ago I was going, oil money guy. It was, we know who's pulling the scenes, pulling the strings behind the scenes, and so yeah, it's all they've really purchased is an audience, because the journalistic machine that was Traxion no longer exists. If it still existed and Motorsport Games had sold it a bit earlier, they might have been able to get a bit more money for it. But I'm not the CEO of Motorsport Games.
Yeah.
But now that Motorsport Games has sold this, they now have $200,000 extra in liquid cash that they can
1
work
month
with.
more to survive. Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's at the rate that they're losing money. It's not a very sustainable way of living for them, but it is at least another piece. If they can find more things to shave off somehow to keep them afloat, then that's something. But at least they live for another month as a result of this to be able to improve Le Mans Ultimate and hopefully get it running.
Have you tested it since your initial tests? After all the updates that they've done?
I have played around with the settings, not since the latest update, but I've played around with the settings. I was able to get it running a little bit better. Frame rate caps and all that have helped. But I'm still having stability issues where it's wanting to crash. So, and not just because of my poor driving, it's like literally the game crashing. Okay. Serta, I will turn it over to you. I know that you really like South American sim racing developers, and usually that's talking about Reza, but we've got a new challenger entering the ring.
Well, not entering the ring. We already know about Pista Motorsport, which are concentrated on the Pista racing. That's touring racing in Argentina. And as you will have heard, God, it's almost like time, moving through time. You will have heard on Sunday, because we will publish it in the news tomorrow. So, Pista Motorsport was silent since October. They didn't even answer mails or whatever. After our initial mail contact, they just went silent, and I suppose they were occupied programming, have published a news on their website about where they are taking Pista Motorsport, the sim, and what they want to do with that. So just in a very quick way, the whole information you can get in the news, which will be linked, I suppose, up there or something like that. Pista Motorsport is going to support mods, but they're going to be selling mods on an own store, something like that. Pista Motorsport is not going to be producing their own races a la IA Racing. They plan at some point to do one race per week within with their own servers, but users can set up their own servers and whatever. It's gonna come out in early access on Steam. No date given yet. I am a big friend of the line of thought, it's ready when it's ready. So I suppose that's their line of thought too. And it's gonna start. So the early access will have offline practice and online time trial. That's the first two things that they're gonna offer. They're gonna bring 4 tracks, if I remember correctly, 4 of the tracks of the Pista League in class 1 and class 1 and class 3 cars. Class 1 are the big cars, the cars that they the so to speak, the Formula 1 of Pista, while the class 3 cars, as far as I understood, are like the GP2s, Formula 2s or whatever, or Formula 3s of that, a way to learn the ropes while not having to invest as much money.
Now these the Procar 4000, the top class that they've got, that's Turismo Carretera, right? Carretera,
something like that. I'm not very knowledgeable. I'm just passingly knowledgeable. I like to watch here and there a race when I catch it, and they are great fun. They are not at the level of the old DTM, but they are something like a pared down WTCR, and they are great fun. The drivers are, of course, giving all their best with these touring cars, which are nearer to the serious, to the street legal cars than the DTMs would ever be, even what the WTCRs would ever be. But yeah, a Procar 4000 is also something that they are working on, but they are not very far into that. They said they just started doing that. So it seems that whenever it comes out in early access on Steam, it's gonna be class 1 and class 3, 4 tracks, and it's gonna be offline practice and online time trial. Of course, their plan is to have you being able to race against AI and being able to race multiplayer. And
yeah,
it's interesting because I don't expect this to be a big group. I don't expect this to be bigger than Rennsport or bigger than Reza. Much to the contrary, I expect these to be, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 people at most programming. And if they deliver what they promise, keep in mind, we have not driven 1 millimeter within Pista Motorsport.
I don't think anyone has.
Other than the developers themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they deliver that, I think they're gonna be in a better time frame than Rennsport.
I think so too. They are doing what Reza did in their early years as well, which was focusing entirely on South American content, which does a few things, I think, for these South American developers. Number one, it's what they know. It's what's local to them. They're going to be able to advertise locally, and people will know what they're talking about, right? Whereas, before this, I wouldn't have known Procar 4000A. I know Turismo
Exactly.
Carretera, love those cars, that sort of thing. But Procar 4000A, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, it's Fords and Dodge. At least we know that.
We have 5 confirmed tracks: La Plata, Rafaela, Rosario, San Nicolas, Termas de Rio Hondo. You probably don't know most of those tracks. If you've played
Termas,
Reza,
if you
some.
play Automobilista 2, you know Termas de Rio Hondo.
Yes, and if you've dove into mods for Assetto Corsa, you probably know Rafaela.
Yeah.
You might know La Plata if you've really dug for it. I think there's a La Plata out there. There might even be a Termas de Rio Hondo. But Rosario, San Nicolas, I don't think exist in any sim so far. So it's cool that we're going to be getting some South American tracks that are pretty overlooked worldwide. That's pretty neat. It will, of course, at first be lacking the Monzas, the Spas, the Le Mans, the
Yeah, but
Nürburgring.
those are in every sim. I don't care.
They're in every
I just
sim. Yes.
do not
No,
care.
I agree.
If you
think
want to drive Spa, you have 5 other sims where you can drive Spa.
you're absolutely right. And I agree. I think that it will be limiting in the scope of what people are used to. So I think they have an uphill battle with regards to that, because GT3s at Spa is like what everyone loves, right?
Yeah.
But
Open a server with GT3s at Monza or GT3s at Spa, and it's full. Open a server with Indy cars at Termas de Rio Hondo, and nobody is there other than you and your and the body that thought it was a great idea.
Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge that they face. But also, there's. I'm going to put this diplomatically. The exchange rate of many South American countries is not favorable to the exchange rate of European and American countries tend to be. So odds are that this startup in Argentina is not in the market to be able to purchase. Something fell in my garage. Sorry, that's why I looked over there. It's not in the market to be able to purchase a big license like the Nordschleife, right? Or Ferrari, right? So this makes sense where everything is all Argentina focused. And Argentina has cool racing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Let's not forget where Reza started. Copa Petrobras de Marcas.
Yes,
it was really one series in Brazil, one big series. Let's not forget that it's a big series. That stock car series is still with them nowadays. They just released the 2024 version of it, so it's a big series. But for Argentina, Pista is also an enormously big series. So Reza started small and is now a contender for arguably the best sim out there at the moment. So I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be of the shut up and take my money people. And I'm gonna be checking the early access and telling our viewers how great or how bad it is. I don't know. It may be fantastic. It looks interesting. The plans that they have sound sensible. They are not shouting everywhere they're gonna be the next iRacing. They're gonna do everything for everyone like Rennsport. And if, and that's a big if they keep the promise that they are making of where Pista Motorsport is gonna go, then they may very well be faster in a good position to be a racing sim than Rennsport is. Because at least I didn't check the last update that came out last week, like week before last. But before that, the force feedback was lacking at Rennsport. And the force feedback for me is the most important thing in a racing sim.
Well, I should have given this at the top for this, but there is actually a really cool origin story for this team that's behind this.
True.
These guys are 3 Argentinian racing drivers who are heading this project. And they started in 2020 during the pandemic, modding Argentinian racing cars into Assetto Corsa, of all things.
Oh, so are the guys that did the Fiat Punto mod?
I don't know their specific repertoire, unfortunately.
Okay. Because that was a fantastic mod. We did a video about that, and that was one of the best mods that I've ever driven on Assetto Corsa. And that's saying something.
Yeah, so it's REG Simulations Assetto Corsa. I'm going to type that in. Yeah, REG Simulations Assetto Corsa. They did the TP Class of 1. They did the... they've done several things. A lot of this is in Spanish. I'm not going to spend the time to translate it in my head right now. But they started there, and then they were like, you know what? We want to make our own standalone sim. Super ambitious.
Like Reza did. Reza also started
like
as being a modding group. So.
I want to read, or at least paraphrase, Pista Motorsport will have mod support. And so this is their quote. They said, "We think of Pista Motorsport as a great platform that covers as much content as possible. We want modders to really get what they deserve for the work and time spent on the platform, and that's why we focus on avoiding at all costs."
Wait, they have an English version of the podcast of the website?
This is, I think, a press release that was released in English.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. This is why once launched to the public, we invite all modders to join the project by contributing their work and receiving a real benefit for their time and dedication. So it sounds like they're going to have a store.
Yes, they say so in the press release. They say they are seeing to it that they build up a store in some kind of way so that modders can sell their mods through Pista.
Yeah, so I think that's super cool. So it may even be, now, if you're selling for $0, you could make a, Porsche whatever, Ferrari whatever, you can tend to use assets. If not, then you've got to kind of obscure it, the Darsh, the Forenzo, that sort of thing.
I mean, you can drive in Reza. You can drive a Formula Ultimate 2023 and a
Formula USA.
Formula USA. So come on. I mean, we all know which cars those are, and even IndyCar knows which cars those are.
For sure. But yeah, so it is a really, really cool project. I love to see when mod makers go super ambitious. The question is, is it too ambitious? But we're not losing anything by watching them take off and giving them a chance. So
I mean, my motto in my life is, if you don't try, you will never succeed.
Yeah. So
I mean,
we're excited for this.
Yeah, exactly. It can be fantastic, and it can be nothing, and it can be mediocre. We don't know. We are rooting for them. At least I am. because I love to see people try things and learn from it. Even if it goes bust, they will have learned something.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, so it's these guys are adding to, and we learned about them last year, but these guys are adding to 2024's lineup of very exciting new sims
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the sim racing ecosystem. Assetto Corsa Evo, Last Garage, now Pista Motorsport.
Last
coming
Garage
into the
is
fray.
not coming out this year. Let's be
Well,
clear
not-
about
yeah.
that.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. But yet still, things on the horizon to look forward to. Sim racing, I think, is in pretty good hands. Also, my goodness.
Oh yeah,
on
and
my
the numbers
camera,
the
things
numbers
got
this
bright.
month, which I just checked, are excellent. They're not the best numbers ever by a small margin. So we still have a lot of people driving sim racing, and well, this is coming out on Thursday, so you will have already heard in the news which sim has made their biggest numbers ever. And that's Assetto Corsa Competizione. Seems you guys love the Notchlife.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, speaking of which, we're going to go back to the past, which is the future for us right now. And in a few hours, a couple hours, we'll be commentating in Assetto Corsa Competizione for Drive for Dean.
6
So
hours
that-
of Spa.
Yes.
Over 60 teams. Driving
That's a lot
mostly
of
for the fun of
cars.
it.
Yeah.
It's 170, 160, 100 and something drivers. So a lot of drivers, a lot of teams, and we hope a lot of fun. And most especially, we hope a lot of donations.
A question
Okay.
to give to our wonderful viewers. I guess, did we have any answers for our last question last time around?
We asked what was the favorite livery, and
Yes.
Scott Crawford says any of the mid-late 90s player schemes from kart. Also
had
the
to look
90,
up what those
1997 Jordan F1.
Hmm. Was that wasn't the Buzzin' Hornets, was it?
No, the Jordan F1. I took a look and found the link to those.
Oh, it was.
Yes, those were the Buzzing Hornets with the Hornets and the
snake.
The snake, exactly.
Snake on the front.
So
Yeah, that
very
one is a
cool
cool
ones.
one.
Didn't know that they had something like that. New, and that was about it. But those were very cool. And I also looked up the kart liveries. Not my cup of tea, but whatever. I found the ones the Jordan ones to be, I don't know, cleverer.
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right, so my question this time around, excluding modded content, what, in your opinion, is the most difficult car to drive in sim racing?
Anything Ferrari or Porsche. In sim racing.
In sim racing.
In real life, I hate driving Ferraris.
Oh, God forbid I have to drive a Ferrari.
I would. So I did twice in my life. Thank you. That's 2 times more than enough. Don't need to. And I don't like driving Porsches either. So I'm a strange beast. I prefer to drive a nimble Mini, a Mini Morris, through steep steep curves than any Ferrari or Porsche. What is the most difficult car to drive in? You know what? Maybe not the most, but it is difficult to drive, and it's good that it is. The Barber, the learning car. What's it called again? It's
Oh, the
Skippy. The Skippy. that one is difficult to drive. It's an open wheel car with no downforce, and it's I had a conversation with somebody on the channel because I tested a mod a long time ago of the Skippy for Assetto Corsa, and he was saying, no, I don't understand why you guys like this is completely difficult to drive, it's horrible, there is no way to keep it on track. And I said, exactly, that's the point of this car, to learn to drive correctly, to learn to give your inputs in the right way. You need a car like this where you have to be precise in your inputs. If you survive a car like this, you can't survive any of the other beasts with downforce, traction control, ABS, and whatnot. But drive the Skippy, survive the Skippy, be able to drive Barber with the Skippy, and then you can go with anything else.
Yeah, that's the Daniel Jimenez mod of the Skippy and Assetto Corsa. But you're still in the clear because the Skippy also exists for iRacing, and I think there's a version of it in Automobilista or Automobilista 2.
I would have to look it up.
Yeah, but I know it's definitely in iRacing, so
yeah,
you're good on that. But anyways, my personal beast that I've tried to tame, and this is cheating a little bit because it started life as a mod, but then it was released as official content. And if you're an Assetto Corsa fan like me, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and that is the Shelby Cobra 427 SC.
Mm-hmm.
That car will kill you. That car will kill you without a second thought. That car is 1966, like 400 horsepower of wheel spin all the way through. It is a tremendously fun car to drive. It is a tremendously stupid car. In that, like, right as you think that you've got it, you'll slide it out a little bit. And it's the kind of car that, like, as designed to drive it fast, you've got to slide it around the corners. It's the 1960s GT kind of car. You got to slide it around the corners. But it has so much power on 1960s rubber that it will just spin all day long. You will be like a top trying to learn that car. Once you learn it, it's a lot of fun. But once you've learned it, you haven't. You still have not learned it. You will still find the limit. The limit will find you, inevitably. Especially if you're driving it for any length of time. Because, you know, getting in it, doing like 3 laps, and you're like, oh God, this is crazy. Wow, that's cool. And then you go do something else. That's different. Drive 3 stints in that car. Drive that on, like, you need tires. That's a whole different beast. The problem is most people never make it to that stage because they've binned it into a wall a long time ago. So if you want a challenge, if you want a car that's perhaps not the Skippy is it's predictable. And that's
how unpredictable.
It's not easy, but it's at least predictable. The 427
by the way,
SC
the Skippy in Automobilista 2 is called, within the sim, is called Formula V.
Yes, yeah, there you go. And that Formula V is actually a real thing that's separate from the Skippy, but they're all kind of around the Formula 1000 or Formula 2000 regulations. Formula V is Formula Volkswagen, which I believe is a South American racing series.
Isn't it nearer to the Formula Ford regulations? My brain just...
It's kind of a step down from Formula Ford. Oh, you said Formula Ford.
Ford.
Yes, it's pretty much the same thing. That like F1000, F2000. Just depends on the engine that you put in it, on whether it's Formula V or Formula Ford. But yeah, so If someone has a more difficult car to drive than the Shelby Cobra 427 SC,
So it has to be part of the sim. It's not allowed to choose mods. It's what you're
correct,
saying.
because I mean, if you want to choose mods, there is a like 1 million horsepower Barth Formula 4 car that someone made for Assetto Corsa, and you just like tap lightly on the accelerator and it breaks the game. That's the most difficult car to drive. But I don't count that, so we're limiting this to base content of any sim. What's the most difficult car to drive? But closing thoughts. Patrons, thank you very much to our patrons. We love our patrons over at patreon.com/RomRom. We thank them all for their support, their ideas, and also to our members here on YouTube for their support, for your support. If you are a patron or a member of at least the Formula Ford driver, or bronze level, you will be able to hear us record this podcast live. We are in the RomRom Discord as we speak right now, not as you're listening to this. You're late. You gotta wait for the next one. But as we speak, we're recording this on a stage, and there is an area where you can listen in. And so if you're a member, you'll be able to hear us record the podcast live, warts and all, and you'll be able to react and ask questions in the chat, which is all the more reason to become a patron. So subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium.
Bye.